Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another amazing upset. This one actually made me happy because I pretty much knew in my brain that Louisville was overrated. They should not have beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame picked up that game and threw it in the trash, ruining their playoff chances, and just that's probably the worst loss Notre Dame could have taken because this Louisville team just threw away their undefeated season against an opponent nobody thought they were going to. Now, I was sketched out by Louisville beating Notre Dame because still it wasn't the best performance I've ever seen, and looking back at Louisville's resume, they still haven't played very well, and it finally caught up to them. They got beaten, not only beaten, but they got their ass handed to them by Pitt. Pitt being one of the worst teams in the ACC. I mean, of course, now they rose up a little bit, but this team would have been 1-5 had they lost this, but they were 1-4, which is pretty much it is the same record as Virginia. They were fighting for the worst teams in the ACC with other teams like Boston College and Wake Forest. And suddenly they just annihilate this team. And this is not a good Pitt team. I repeat, this is not a good Pitt team. Pitt starts off the year killing Wofford, and then they lose to Cincinnati at home. Cincinnati is currently 2-4. They haven't won a game since they played at Pitt. Then they lose to West Virginia at West Virginia. They get their ass handed to them by North Carolina, and then they get their ass handed to them by the exact same final score as this game by Virginia Tech. This is not a good Pitt team. It's just they're really, really bad. But yet another game that has been turned around by turnovers. Another one. Louisville actually had every right to win this game. They had 28 first downs. However, they were 5 for 13 on third downs. They were 0 for 4 on fourth downs, and they turned the ball over 3 times. When you're going to give away pretty much 7 possessions, which was what Notre Dame gave to Louisville, you're not winning a football game. But still, Louisville actually looked like a team in this game, but they're playing Pitt, one of the worst teams in the ACC, if not the worst. I don't really have the faith to put them under Virginia, though. This, even if you turn the ball over 7 times, it is Pitt. It is not a good team. There is no reason Louisville should be going for 4 fourth downs. Just ridiculous. Pitt went for 2 and converted both. They didn't turn over the ball once. The only stat that stands out in Pitt's disadvantage is penalties. Pitt had 8 penalties for 82 yards, whereas Louisville had 5 for 15 yards. I don't really know how that works, but apparently it does. So it's just that's the only stat. Louisville had 350 yards of passing and 80 rushing. Pitt had 200 yards of passing and 88 rushing. Louisville led by a good 150 on total yards. It's just they couldn't stop turning the ball over. So they get every little bit of what they deserve. It's actually funny because Louisville was up 24 or 21 to 7. Oh my God, 21 to 14, and they just threw the game away from that point on. I mean, just horrific performance. It finally caught up to Louisville. They've got to play Duke next week, which I don't actually want to say they'll lose because it's at Louisville and it's a top. We'll see if it's still a top 25 matchup. And now there will definitely be fans there, especially after what we saw at the Notre Dame game. There will definitely be fans there, but from that point on, I don't know, man. I get the Kentucky-Louisville will be there definitely full. I don't know. This just was not a loss Louisville could take. I get losing at Miami, but this team could have, if they were good, been a one-loss team. They won the games that they needed to win, really just being Notre Dame. They barely scraped by everybody else except for Boston College and Murray State. Barely scraped by everybody else. So this Louisville team is bad. Do not get it twisted. There's no hope for Pitt. They've got to play a bad Wake Forest team next week, which they could beat or they could lose. Then they've got to play at Notre Dame, definitely a loss. They host Florida State, definitely a loss. Host Syracuse, I don't really even know what's going to happen there. Host Boston College, that'll be a shit show. And at Duke, they will lose that. This literally could have been a one-win Pittsburgh team, but somehow they beat Louisville. And that just comes to show this Louisville team was overrated. They should not have won that game against Notre Dame. It was simply just the environment and everything. They should not have won. So, yep, that's all I have to say about this. I guess I could do a little recap of what's going on right now. I'm actually kind of stunned by some of the ways these games have turned out. USC Notre Dame is pretty much over. It's 20-38. It looks like that game is going to finish off, especially since USC's got a 4th and 9 in Notre Dame or in USC territory. North Carolina has taken off on Miami. North Carolina should definitely be like a top 5 team, I believe. Top 5 might be a little much. Maybe like top 8 team, because I do think it is a decent Miami team they went up against. They kicked the crap out of them. Missouri's winning 35-21 on the road at Kentucky. They were down 14-0 in that game. I am very, very, very surprised with the way Missouri is playing, and ultimately Missouri should be undefeated right now. They sold against LSU. UCLA is getting killed by Oregon State. Yeah, man, it's just that loss. Oregon State losing to Washington State was just a terrible loss. They should have never lost that game, because like right now they'd be ranked. UCLA wouldn't be anything. Washington State wouldn't be anything. Like, dude, Oregon State's still in it, but that was just a bad loss. And Duke is currently kicking the crap out of NC State. As I expected, Duke is holding NC State to just 3 points. I did not expect NC State to put up any points anyways. So, yeah, that's pretty much all the games we've got left. Any other finished ones, I'd rather just talk about it. So, yeah, that's what I have for this video. That's all for me. Adios.